Welcome to In These Strange Times, a series featuring Tulsans in conversation about the individual and collective changes we're all experiencing in this year 2020 and beyond. I'm your host, Alexander Taman, and this episode is called Native Land. Behind us is Council Oak Tree, where Tulsa was founded. We give special honor to the Creek Nation for allowing us to come together on their sacred land. Thank you for joining us today. And before we kind of introduce ourselves and dive into the conversation, would either any one of you like to take time to just speak to the sacred space on which we are coming together and gathering, just to inform and educate our viewers about where we are coming together today specifically?
Well, being the Mvskoke Creek representative here, I think I'd probably take this one. This is the founding and the spot where Tulsa began. The Lochaboga people of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Our ceremonial fires are what makes us Creek. Yeah. It's who we are to the most traditional point. And those ashes in that fire were brought to this part of our new home, placed here, and blossomed into, Tulsa town, Tallahassee, and now Tulsa. So this spot is very, very sacred to the Mvskoke Creek people, and it ought to be to the city of Tulsa. And I think a lot of people see it for what it is, which is just the beginnings of not only a great big city here, but also where Creek Nation or Creek people really set their roots in this new home. So very, very, very important spot. And every year we actually come back and commemorate the Council Oak ceremony, where all of our traditional leaders, all of our traditional, we call them Mikos, but it's town kings or kings of the ceremonial ground. So all the Mikos come together, all the ceremonial people come together and really celebrate this spot for what it is. So very great spot.
So thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
And we honor this spot. And let's also continue to introduce ourselves, and we'll just kind of start from there and free flow.
Yeah, my name is Amanda Clinton. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I am from what I like to call the Tri-County, little trifecta area where Mays, Delaware, and Cherokee County meet. My ancestors have been there since at least 1880. We still have a farm there. I go back and forth. I was there yesterday. I go back and forth quite a bit. And, we were removed here on the Trail of Tears back in the 1830s. My ancestors were actually, well, some of them. Some came over on the trail, some were old settlers. So I have ancestors that did both. But, have been in what is now Oklahoma Indian Territory since, the 1820s even. But where I grew up, my ancestors actually registered there in the Saline district, where I grew up and where our farm is, in 1900 on the Dawes Commission. Okay. And they were there, from 1870 or 1880, from at least I can tell then, probably even before. So this land here in Oklahoma is very special to me. It's very sacred to me. And I just want to say thank you to Jason over here and the Creek Nation for hosting us here on this sacred land that's theirs, and just very gracious to them. And I think it's important to acknowledge that whenever we're on another tribe's lands.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And last but certainly not least.
I'm Mason Whitehorn Powell. I'm a member of the Osage Nation, and the Osage purchased our reservation land actually from the Cherokee in the 1830s. And
back, it was yours.
Yeah. And then my family were original Latis. Kehikanache, my great-great-grandfather, was an original Lati, and I'm from Hominy, Oklahoma, the Zanzoli district. And so my family has been here a long time. My family has stuck around. We have our roots here. I've been involved in tribal government, and I would also like to acknowledge being here on Creek land, and I've always loved the Council Oak Tree. It's just a beautiful place and a reminder of that past. So
let's dive in there. I feel like there's so many things to talk about. So let's start with McGirt, Oklahoma. We'll just jump right on in there. What does that mean? Well, first let's set the context for those that are not aware or engaged with everything that has transpired, everything that is history making, really.
Well, you know, I don't want to get too far in how it came about, because so many people have made this about something that it's not for us.
Yeah.
You open the Tulsa World and you see, every time you see a story about this case, there's a big picture of Jim C. McGirt in a jumpsuit. And we don't even really like to call it McGirt anymore. We like to call it the Supreme Court's decision to reaffirm the Mvskoke Reservation. And for us, that's really simply what it's all about, is that the Congress never disestablished the Mvskoke Reservation. And because of that, we need to rectify the fact that the state of Oklahoma has been operating illegally for many, many years.
Absolutely.
And you know, we see things now come up where there's questions of, does this strictly deal with jurisdictional issues and crime? Does this deal with taxation issues, everything like that? And it's got certain people in a bit of a tizzy. You know, you talk about an Oklahoma Tax Commission puts out a report that says, oh, everyone, this is how much money it's going to cost Oklahoma. Or you see the OC, Oklahoma Council on Public Affairs, put out just a very inappropriate letter that we felt we needed to respond to, because, you know, in this time and in this state, you're not going to be anti-Indigenous on our watch.
Right.
It's time for us to be who we are, claim this place as ours, and coexist in harmony and partnership with our neighbors, our local partners, like we've done for so many years. You can go to any small town in our reservation, Osage the same way, very much so with the Cherokee Nation, and find people living in rural communities that go, we couldn't make it as a community if it wasn't for these tribes that fortify us, that employ us, that bring business here, and that do things that make us, you know, thrive and survive in modern society. So we've already established great partnership. We've already established a precedence of being able to work together. This isn't something to legislatively fix.
Right.
This isn't a problem that the Mvskoke Creek Nation got their reservation back, and that the Osage Nation has their rights, and that the Cherokee Nation will soon have their reservation affirmed. It's not a problem to fix legislatively at all. It's something that can call us all to the same table. And I've heard, you know, the saying, with, you know, we don't want to be on the menu anymore. I mean, you know, we want to be at the table. Well, I say it's our table.
Yeah.
It's we have equal stake in the table. We're not above Oklahoma. We're not below Oklahoma. We're right here as a sovereign nation, and that's the way we see it. That's the way we've tried to message it, and that's the way we've tried to educate folks that may not know exactly what's happening. So from my vantage point, that's the best way I could really talk about McGirt on the surface. For what it means, not only for us, it's a promise fulfilled, it's a promise kept, and it means so much emotionally to our folks. But to others outside the Mvskoke Creek Nation that may not know, we just want them to know we're here to work, we're here to be at the same table, and we're here to make Oklahoma the best it can be for all of us.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Well, and I want to add to that, you know, because I think what's been so frustrating for me and so much of the media coverage is that there seems to be some sort of a blame shifted to the tribes on this, and that's not it at all. Like Jason mentioned, Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, has been behaving lawlessly for 114 years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the tribes have done nothing but be reaffirmed in the fact that, you know, we have existed in perpetuity, you know, since, you know, before Oklahoma was ever a state.
Right.
So all it's done is just reaffirm our sovereign status as tribes. So whenever, and I understand that there are many families who feel that, you know, they have been wronged in a way by the legal system whenever they feel that their cases were resolved, and now there's this, you know, as they see it, a wrench thrown into their case. And I feel for those families. I very much do. I very much feel for those families, and we all should feel for those families. You know, they are victims in all of this. But whenever I hear that, you know, they can't be retried because the federal statute of limitations has run out, what I hear in that also is not just empathy for the victims in these current cases, but empathy for victims across Indian country, because those federal statutes have been applying to victims in Indian country forever.
Right.
So these are crimes that have been committed against Indians and or victims in Indian country, you know, for years and years. So if you think that it's a travesty that someone, you know, can serve a very short sentence under a federal statute, this is what's been going on for decades in Indian country.
Yeah.
Decades. You know, women have been, you know, mistreated, you know, beaten, raped, murdered, and if you think the laws are applying right now are lax, the reaction should not be to become upset with the tribes. It should be, let's all band together. Let's fix these federal statutes.
Yeah.
You know, let's fix these statute of limitations, because these wrongs that, you know, people are now seeing in Oklahoma, I think really just pull the cloak back on what's been happening on reservations across this country. And so that, to me, I think should be the takeaway for people, is this has been happening to Indians for decades in this country. And they all need to band together and become partners and fix these federal statutes.
Thank you.
If I can weigh in, I'm glad
Absolutely.
you addressed it on a personal and local level, because there's not one treaty that has been kept. So the fact is that there are people who would, in government, who would actively seek to de-establish the reservations. So this sort of affirmation, and from a Republican Supreme Court justice, shows that we can work together, and there's a way to have, I mean, the federal government has been working hand in hand with the tribes, for better or worse, for a long time. But we have to figure out how to do that on the state level, because there's still a lot of conflict. There's still a lot of butting heads, and I don't think that's what the tribes want. You know, the tribes want to coexist. We know we have to work with the state, but this is a great affirmation because it shows that moving forward, maybe some of that past can be rectified and we can be acknowledged.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a great point, because, you know, I think what Mason's saying too is that, and Amanda touched on it as well, is that this isn't so much chaos as it is an invitation to come together and fix a lot of things that are broken. For us, it's a broken system. We've been saying that till we're blue in the face. This is an opportunity here to look at the things that don't work and haven't worked. You just haven't been paying attention to the marginalized people that it affects. But these things haven't worked, and we've known that. There's a reason that we push so hard for the Violence Against Women Act and the reauthorization. There's a reason that we have family violence prevention programs at all of our tribes and do so much work in that arena, because that's a real problem, that these jurisdictional gaps and these things that haven't been fixed allow things to happen that we really, really, really have to band together and take care of ourselves, because from our vantage point, it looks like we're the only one that cares about it. And if we all, you know, all cared about it and fixed the things that are wrong with it, it's part of that coming to the table that he talks about. We've had this, you know, I don't know, you know, this I guess, division where it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I see it as less chaos and more bringing things into order, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, all this did was really bring us in line with how almost every other tribe in the United States is in their reservations. You know, this works. And so this way there's not a patchwork of jurisdiction anymore. It can just be a uniform way to treat Indians across the United States. And so I see it less chaotic and more bringing things into uniform code and fixing these federal statutes that, you know, that are unfair, not just to Indians, but to everyone.
What is sovereignty without having the legislative authority, the judicial authority? Because sovereignty can only extend so far if the tribes aren't able to govern themselves, to have control over that land and what happens to their people on that land.
So how does the Supreme Court decision then impact non-Indigenous people, and how can they be supportive of what I'm hearing like needs to happen in terms of coming together? Like, how can we, as a greater community, support our Indigenous communities?
I think it always comes back to who you're talking to. Are you talking to the people that are going to tell you from our vantage point, or from a vantage point of fear-mongering and uncertainty and that whole chaos? Come and speak with us. Come and talk to our Attorney General. My goodness, we just need DAs in different areas to talk to our Attorney General's office to have some of these, you know, like these cases that come up that have made news and things like that. If there were just communication that would have never been an issue, or that would have never been something seen as a problem. A lot of the times we're talking to our Attorney General's office and say, you know, we have people just throwing their hands up and we can't even get officers there before we're already saying, oh, you're Indian, I'll see you later, you know? And so I think from the general public is, you know, how you can help us is just come and get it from us. Listen to us. When the Mvskoke Creek Nation is out there telling their story, or the Mvskoke Creek Nation has a panel or something like that available where they're talking about this decision and what it means and what it can mean going forward.
Yeah.
Soak all of that up. You know, if you have your mind made up but on this issue without getting it from all of the players, I guess that's the main thing I would say, is just the general public, just soak up all the Mvskoke history you can get. Talk to Mvskoke Creek people. You know, talk to the Mvskoke Creek Nation government. That's what I'm here for. Talk to Mvskoke, talk Mvskoke Creek Nation to people that want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here today, in fact.
That's beautiful and so necessary, because it seems the narratives are so appropriated and completely warped, right?
Yes.
So then people...
You know, I heard McGurk called on a news story the other day a loophole.
Yeah.
They called it a loophole. I said, no, it's not a loophole. This is actually a law. This is not a loophole. And so it's those kinds of things that are very frustrating. So I think respect first, just to be respectful, and don't assume. You know, don't assume that. You know, don't assume that the tribes are against you, or that this is going to be a negative thing. Like I said, it should be a positive thing to go out and fix, you know, these loopholes. And I would say another thing is read the Supreme Court decision. I didn't mean to steal it from you, but it's so simple.
It's incredibly easy to understand.
It's incredibly easy to understand. And I mean, any sky is falling Chicken Little scenario is taken care of like that. In that decision, it is so clear and it's so concise and it's so contextual that, I mean, I just lost myself in it, because it was like, wow, like, and it's exactly why I never understood why this thing went to the Supreme Court. I never understood that, because the question was simple: was the Mvskoke Creek Nation's reservation ever disestablished? Well, can you find me a law that Congress ever passed that disestablished their reservation?
Right.
No.
Right.
So why did all of this money and time and resources get wasted? So it doesn't. That's why it doesn't only apply to the Creek Nation reservation, or quite frankly, possibly to many hundreds or tens or however many reservations out there, because that's just the simple question. Was it ever disestablished? Because only Congress can disestablish a reservation. You can't be disestablished out of convenience, which is what the state of Oklahoma was arguing, that we should be disestablished out of convenience.
It's a simple question of whether the tribes were mistreated or not, or whether the laws are just or not, or there was fairness in the past. And I mean, I think most people, if they look at the history, if they educate themselves, they'll see that the tribes were mistreated and a lot of treaties and laws were broken, and that where we're sitting now, the Creek were here first, and then there was a land grab. So I mean, if you look at the history, you'll see why this has to happen, and why you know, this decision is a good thing.
When you talk about just the opinion itself, from Justice Gorsuch, you know, everybody remembers the first line, and that's kind of the tattoo line, I call it. And you know, and let's etch that in stone. Let's put it on every courthouse, you know, that we have. But I think Amanda will probably high-five me on this too. But you go a little bit lower, and you find a little shade, because Justice Gorsuch basically said, "Look, this is the easiest decision I maybe have ever had to write, but just because you act a certain way for so long doesn't make it the law."
Yes, exactly.
You can assume jurisdiction, and you can assume control, you can assume regulatory authority, you can assume taxation capabilities, all you want. But if Congress did not disestablish, and we have in plain black and white here that they did not, it's pretty cut and dry. But the fact that it was so highly contested, the fact that it was a very close vote, And shout out to RGB. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
We love you.
She scared me in that
she's,
one.
she's feeling us
Because she's
today.
not always been consistent. She wasn't
She's
always
with us.
consistent on,
No.
on Indian cases.
And that's why I say shout out to RGB, because she's very, very much a due process judge, right? Yeah, wasn't always, you know, very friendly, I guess, in decision making towards tribes, but you know, threw us a solid on her last decision, which is history in itself as well. You know, and
you know, I'll make another point real quick, is that I think diversity on that court, it's important geographically and not just in racial and ethnic makeup, because Judge Gorsuch is the only justice from the West.
Yep.
Everyone else is from the East, and Judge Gorsuch, so he's familiar with Indian issues. So I know that people want to say that he's, you know, he's a conservative judge or whatever, but actually he's from the West, and that's why he had to recuse in the first case, was because he'd already decided on it in a lower court. So that's why the first one tied up 4-4. But he has a context around Indian issues. He understands natives. He understands reservations. And so I think that diversity in the court is really important from a geographical standpoint, not just an ethnic and gender standpoint, because his perspective just brought a whole new level of understanding to that case.
Something I'll add to that is that what can non-Indigenous people do to understand these issues is that we have power, we have voting power. And if you look at this, the ballot for the upcoming presidential election in Oklahoma, there are 8 or 9 judges up for re-election. So, I mean, you have to look at them individually. How have they handled tribal matters? Because, as you said, just because somebody is seen as conservative does not, or as liberal, does not mean that they're going to go one way or the other on tribal issues. You know, every judge approaches that differently. So moving forward, that's something that's always important to look at, because, you know, like, as you said earlier, you know, tribal people are your neighbors, and a lot of the times they really help the communities, and a lot of this legislation is really impactful for the decisions that we make moving forward.
Yeah, I love that he says that too, because historically tribes, we're apolitical. You know, we're very much not partisan in our issues and in our the things that have taken place with tribes, and that's one of the things I think is our badge of honor. While we see such you know, infighting in our country and really this takeover of identity politics, here we are as Native American nations just going by the letter of the law, and hey, you know, just read it for what it is, and everything will be pretty much easy on our part. We don't need to lobby this party, this party. There's certainly parties that lean certain ways when it comes to our issues, but at the same time, we're largely bipartisan. Wouldn't you guys agree? I think.
No, I would agree with that. You know, who was really good on Indian issues? Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan. IGRA was established under Ronald Reagan. The Indian Gaming Regulatory Act was established under Reagan. So, you know, it's not that tribal issues are conservative or, you know, liberal. They're very nonpartisan.
I've been really proud of the tribes.
Oh,
all
me
of
too.
them.
Yeah,
In COVID,
all of them.
I think we've been a very good example of how our communal societies work for us. Everybody sort of coming together. We had an initiative at Creek Nation called One Mvskoke, which was, hey, I don't know where you're at, I don't know what you do, but right now, it's all hands on deck. So many different challenges. But for us to meet that moment and do it before a lot of other people were getting serious about it, to me, that was something that I'm so proud of. To see Chief Hill come out and declare a state of emergency before the United States government even did. For me, you know, we wanted people's ears to perk, and I told you guys about this earlier. Whenever we did that state of emergency, it's like our people said, oh, let's get serious now. In late February, let's get serious now. And that led to us having very much success mitigating this in our health system, in our facilities. I've felt really good about the response that we've taken.
And that's why I think that the state and cities and local governments really need to lean on the tribes more, because people listen to their chief. Like in these tribal communities, people listen to their chief. So they may miss what the governor says, or they may miss what a county commissioner says, or even the president or something. But if their chief signals up something and says, we're declaring a state of emergency in the Cherokee Nation, they're going to listen to them.
A big part of it too, for us, has been consistency of the message. You know, we've never took the gas off of wear your mask and social distance and And we've seen inconsistencies from the state level,
Yes.
from the CDC,
Yes.
from the federal government.
Or pretended like everything was okay.
Or-
Exactly.
Like
Go
we've
back
always
out.
said, take this
Yes.
seriously, not like we're around in the corner.
Yeah.
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
You're doing okay, Oklahoma. We've said this is serious. Take
That's
it
right.
serious. Watch out
From
for
the
elders.
get-go.
Keep
Yeah.
your distance.
That was that early jump.
Yeah.
That was so crucial. As tribal people, I think there's this inherent care for the greater aspect of things rather than self. Is there going to be enough food for everyone?
Yeah.
Is there going to be enough shelter for everyone? I don't really care about myself. Is everybody good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how a lot of our native grandmothers are. You know what I mean? If you go over to the Creek grandmother's home, you're eating. You know, you're not turning down the food that's going to be offered to you. It's considered basically rude in Creek culture. You know, one of the hardest things was our chief, which the Creek Nation government, and you guys know how it is as well, the government of your tribe is so much very different than the nation itself of people.
Yes.
So
Yes,
you
that's
have,
such an important distinction.
right, and you have this government decisions that the chief has to make that may clash with people decisions on the ground. So by the chief saying, hey, everybody, from my government aspect, no gatherings. You have your traditional stomp dance people going, the government cannot tell us to not have our traditional ceremonies.
Yeah.
And the chief going, I have to respect that, you know, what they say.
Yeah.
There is a very much a distinct line drawn here. I can tell everybody else, hey, wear your mask, you know, social distancing. But he doesn't get involved in traditional matters because those people from their ceremonial grounds, not all of them see Chief David Hill as their chief. They see the chief of that ceremonial ground as their chief.
What you mentioned about when you said that the nation is different from the people, I think that's so important for non-natives to understand because they have such a difficult time trying to wrap their heads around that like the Cherokee Nation or the Creek Nation or the Osage Nation, those are governments. They're political bodies. And the people are citizens of those tribes.
Right.
So it's really important to separate the political body from the individual. It's just like saying that I'm also a citizen of the United States, I'm an American, but my government is the federal government, is the United States government, and it's no different with tribes.
Yeah.
The real test now is what do we do moving forward?
Yes, like moving
You know,
forward.
I think so many people, and it's easy to do, is to romanticize things like the McGirt decision because it is such a grand, singular event, and we won a Supreme Court case, which is just, I'm telling you guys, it's few and far between. And so when you look at the ramifications of that, there is this really big high that comes from just July 9th and that day. We talked about it earlier. Getting people to see things through, you know, indigenous eyes and indigenous issues on just a base knowledge level, really, and not having, you know, just any kind of uncertainty about it. And that really takes away a lot of the, you know, the ability to kind of put those people into a mode of fear when it comes to what they don't know.
Yeah. So now I want to know what gives each of you hope, be that for yourself as an individual and for your people as well. Like in these strange times, I just believe it's important to always keep hope in sight, you know, and to be present to it. So yeah, I'm just so curious as to what has brought you hope, or what is bringing you even more into a place of hope for yourself, for your people, for our greater community.
So I hope that this is a reset, that we start talking about deforestation, sustainability, all those things. So I hope that this pandemic and all the chaos of it, we see opportunity there, and that just, you know, for our tribes too, here locally, in a more obviously micro level, that we just keep being seen as partners and opportunities to grow and create partnerships with, as we've always done and will continue to do.
We're heirs to a legacy of survival. Survival is literally in our DNA and our makeup. Now this generation gets a chance to show our survival instincts and our survival chops, if you will. And so for me, that's what's hopeful. I'm excited for the opportunity for us to, quote unquote, show everyone how it's done.
What gives me hope is seeing a strong body of Native creators and creatives working right here in Tulsa. And the work that they're doing is really changing the way people see Natives and helping with representation. You know, Sterling Harjo, Seminole, and Mvskoke Creek, he just filmed the pilot Reservation Dogs that's set to come out hopefully with FX next year. And that will be, you know, the first time that Native teenagers have been represented on network television. And I think it was an all-indigenous writer's room. And there's plenty of others. Yadika Fields, Osage, local painter and muralist. He just did a mural down on 6th and Peoria. And with Nani Chacon, who came in from Albuquerque. So seeing work like that, it's really changing the landscape and showing, you know, on a local and hopefully national level that the narrative is shifting. So that's what gives me hope, is that there's really a renaissance right now of Native artists.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank each of you for meeting this moment. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mason. I thank and honor each of your tribes. I thank you, Creek Nation. I thank you, Osage. Thank you, Cherokee. This was a beautiful, beautiful moment, cup filling in a lot of ways for me personally, as I hope it has been for you all. And I think that's it. Are we done? Yeah, we did that. Cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, awesome.
You say we're forever, but you know that is a lie. Baby, you say I'm too clever, and I know you're